And that is something I'm having a bit of a tough time accepting. Oh my God. I did not think I was gonna cry. Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Hamali, your internet big sis. I share stories, I give advice, and I talk about all the things that nobody wants to talk about. Today's video is gonna be a little bit more like a FaceTime because your girl is just not having it this week. I just need to vent. I just wanna share some of the things that have been ping-ponging around in my mind that maybe some of you guys can relate to as well. I'm not gonna lie, I really struggled to sit down and film this video this week. I'm actually doing it so last minute because I've been dealing with my PMDD symptoms. So I've just had like zero energy to do anything. I've honestly been putting off all my work as much as I can because I have so much brain fog. Some months my period isn't awful to deal with and some months it's just really bad. And this month for some reason it's been really bad mentally. I've been super anxious and depressed. I've had to go to events this week and attend some meetings. And if I wasn't doing that, then I was honestly just laying in bed and trying to conserve my energy because I knew I would need it to be social in those moments. I got diagnosed with PMDD 5 years ago. I've been dealing with it for about 8 years now though, and having to adjust my lifestyle to accommodate this condition has been the toughest thing I've ever had to do, especially when it comes to my career, because growing up I was super ambitious, and that's not to say I'm not anymore, but there was a different level of energy that I could put into my ambitions. I was a grinder. I used to be able to work so much, and once I started dealing with PMDD, I really had to slow down my lifestyle, and I've gotten more used to it now, but there's still a lot of times where I feel guilty for not being able to work as much as I want to. There's always thoughts in the back of my head like, oh, I could achieve so much more had I not had this condition. But then at the same time, I have to remind myself that had I not had this condition and gone through those experiences, I wouldn't have healed my mental health and breaking generational traumas. I wouldn't have been able to openly talk about these taboo and stigmatized topics online. I just wouldn't be the person that I am today. So it is a double-edged sword, but there's definitely a part of me that mourns the life that I used to have. I feel like I would be invincible with the knowledge that I have now and the energy that I used to have back then. Like I said though, I wouldn't be the person I am today without my PMDD. It's why I started my mental health journey and a big reason for why I'm an advocate for mental health. When I started my mental health journey, I began to realize how much I had a warped perception of reality. When you go from being consistently praised and seeing all this material success to someone that can't work the way they used to, it really messes with your brain and your sense of self. You know, by the time I was like 25, 26, I actually had built a really good career for myself. I was making great money. I was what I like to call socially successful. I had a lot of the things that would qualify me as successful within society's eyes. So for example, I was married, had a husband, owned a house, had a successful career, was well recognized within my community, etc., etc. Things that if you looked at my life from the outside and you didn't really know me, you would think I had it all. I had it all together. But internally, I was struggling like crazy. I started wondering why my mind and body felt so disconnected. And when I questioned that, my reality just started to unravel. If you've been following me for a while, you might have actually witnessed my unraveling online without realizing that that's exactly what was happening. I would say this unraveling started happening heavily back in 2020 when I started therapy. If you watch my content from pre-2020 to after 2020, you would notice it's very, very different. And, I started talking about more vulnerable, stigmatized, taboo topics online. Also, looking back at my content, it looks really messy and all over the place. I didn't really have a theme or a niche that I was focusing on within my content. It just felt like brain vomit. It was like whatever was in my mind, I was just pushing it out into content. But my mind at that time was very scrambled. I really didn't have the energy or ability to focus on my career because between 2020 to about, I would say 2023 is when I was heavily focusing on my personal life and personal relationships, I started questioning who I was surrounding myself with. I started setting boundaries in place with people that I didn't really align with. I was healing a lot of generational trauma and repairing relationships with people that I really loved but didn't necessarily always get along with, like my parents. And I focused a ton of energy on healing the generational trauma that was showing up in my marriage, especially because one thing that I did notice between my relationship with my husband is that we were reliving our parents' marriages, the good and the bad. Like, I'm not saying all of it was bad. There was a lot of values and great lessons that we learned from our parents that really held our marriage together. But then there was a lot of things that also didn't serve us in our marriage, like our communicating styles. You know, growing up in a household and watching a marriage where your parents don't fully know how to communicate with each other in a healthy way, that ends up affecting the way you show up in a marriage too. And so I was trying to work through all of that and make sure I had my home life together because, oh my God, I feel like I'm getting emotional. Because more than my career at that point, I just wanted a personal life that made me feel happy and safe. And I felt like at the end of the day, when I look back at my life, I'm not going to look at how much money I made and how much I worked and all that. What's going to come through my head is going to be the people that I surrounded myself with and the love I experienced and the memories I created with my loved ones. So I just wanted to make sure that I was really happy and fulfilled in that part of my life. So I ended up putting my career on the back burner. Obviously, I continued to make content and all that stuff, but I was never able to fully focus on what I wanted to do with my career. And I'm not even gonna lie, like, I really did tank my business. And that is something I'm having a bit of a tough time accepting. Oh my God. I did not think I was gonna cry. Oh my God. Anyways, as a career-oriented woman and someone who really strives to be independent, to put my career on the back burner and just let it, I wouldn't say it failed, but like I was definitely on the trajectory to do really well and I just kind of let it slip out of my hands, I feel like. And that's been really hard for me to accept. I don't regret my decision on focusing on my personal life, but I still do mourn the loss of the trajectory I was going on. I always am left thinking like of what could have been. And now in my 30s, I'm feeling just really lost in what I want to do with my career. In my early 20s, I was just so sure of my path. Like I knew I loved makeup. I could envision myself as a really successful person within the beauty industry. But now at 30, my passion for beauty is not the same. I still love it and it's still a big part of my life, but I want to be known for more than just my makeup looks and my fashion. When I started going to therapy, I realized how much I had been suffering in silence, and I thought to myself, you know, if I'm suffering in silence, I can only imagine how many other people are suffering in silence, because I'm a freaking yapper and I will openly talk about things to strangers. So the fact that I still feel like I'm suffering in silence, I can't imagine what other people are going through. And that's why I use my platform to talk about all these stigmatized taboo topics, because when I was struggling, I wish I had someone to watch that would talk about these things so I didn't feel so alone. And I figured, you know, why not become the person that I needed? To me, it was like, if not me, then who? Because I wasn't seeing people talk so candidly about, you know, things like mental health or generational trauma or relationships with parents or losing friends and all that stuff online. Especially when you grow up in a South Asian community where you're told to keep your private life and private problems like so hush hush and just sweep everything under the rug. Anyways, I felt like I had this massive platform that I could use for good, that I could really help change people's lives, and that's what I started doing. But I've been struggling with it because it is a leap from what I was doing before. There's a lot of struggles that kind of come with it. People don't always take you as seriously because you're some girl that does makeup and is super into her looks but is talking about something so serious. A lot of people expect people who enjoy beauty to be very one-dimensional and materialistic, and that's just, it's not the case for most people, and it's definitely not the case for me. So yeah, that's one struggle, trying to get people to take you seriously. Another struggle is that there's really no money in this. Like, me talking about these things doesn't make me marketable. I'm not out here pushing products or doing reviews and tutorials as much as the next influencer, and so brands might just find it hard to place their products within my content, and that's how I get paid. So figuring out a stable income while I talk about these things has been quite the struggle for me. Shedding light on these topics and making people feel heard and seen is where my passion lies, but that's not where the money lies. And luckily, my husband has been supporting me in this journey and continuously reminds me that, you know, doing something like this is going to be a long game. It's probably not something I can make a career out of right away, because people need to learn how to trust me and need to warm up to me, especially because I'm talking about such heavy topics. And I think he's right, but again, that's been another difficult thing to accept, especially being someone that's been so independent and that would make a ton of money and was a hustler and whatever. Like, being this patient around something like this and not having full control over the situation is killing me inside. I feel like I'm reinventing myself in my 30s, and a part of me thinks I'm young and I have time and I'm gonna figure it out, and then the other part of me feels like, oh my god, I should have it figured out by now. Like, what the fuck? I almost feel embarrassed because there's a lot of people within my industry that I started before or started out with that are absolutely thriving. They've like found their groove, they're doing so well, they're working with all these brands, they're getting their dream collabs, and they're just thriving, and I'm so happy for them. I genuinely believe they all deserve it because they've worked so hard, but it's really hard not to compare yourself in that situation, because you kind of started together and you're watching them do so well and you're like, well, why isn't that happening for me? Why haven't I hit my stride? And I know comparison is the thief of joy, but sometimes it's really hard not to compare, especially when you're in an industry that gives you platforms to just consistently compare yourself. Working on my mental health and healing from my traumas, both personal and generational, has left me with such conflicting feelings. On one hand, it's been so liberating, but then on the other, it's like my world has just completely fallen apart and I don't know what to do anymore. No, I'm not technically starting over at 30, but it feels like I am, and it's a beautiful thing to think about because it feels like inside of me I have this blank canvas that I can now fill with anything that actually serves me and fills me with purpose. But then again, the conflicting feeling of that is that I am terrified that I have this blank canvas that I can fill with absolutely anything, and I have no idea where to start, because everything I knew and learned over the last 30 years of my life felt like a lie. And so it's like, okay, I need to fill this canvas with my truths, but what are my truths? And figuring that part out can feel really daunting. I'm sorry if this get ready with me seems like it's just all over the place and really confusing, but honestly, that's kind of how I feel right now. My brain just feels so scrambled. I haven't been able to form cohesive thoughts in the last week, partially because of my period and partially because I'm having an existential crisis, clearly. I guess I'm using this get ready with me as a word vomit journal entry. I don't even know if any of you guys are going to be able to relate to this. I don't even know if anyone will watch this or just find it annoying. And I don't blame you guys if you do. I'm sorry if this isn't the type of content you want to see. Usually I do make content based off of, your comments and the things you guys want me to talk about, but I needed to get all this off my chest. This is stuff that I've talked about before in therapy and to close friends and family about, but sharing my story and my feelings online does help me feel more liberated and free. And I know that might sound weird to some people because for some it might just be like TMI, this is something that you should be dealing with in private. But for me personally, I've always struggled with hiding parts of myself and my feelings. I can do it, but when I do, it really does eat me alive inside and I just need to get it out. Personally, I really hate when people don't know all of me, just because then I feel like I have to mask and act like everything's okay and put on this act, and that to me is more draining than just people knowing that I'm struggling with XYZ problem. I'd rather people just know that and it be real, and if you can't deal with it and don't want to be around it, that's cool. Like, you don't need to be around me, you don't need to watch my content, whatever. But for me, it is liberating and freeing because I feel like I can be my authentic self. I feel like I spent such a huge chunk of my life hiding parts of myself so that I would be more likable and digestible for people, and I'm honestly just so tired of it. I don't want to hide parts of myself anymore because it's exhausting. I just want people to either accept me or reject me for who I am. I'm totally okay with people not liking me, but I don't want to show up as someone that I'm not, or someone that constantly feels like they need to put on a performance, because I physically just feel like I can't anymore. That's not to say like when I talk to people or when I meet people I'm constantly a downer. Like, I'm still happy and I'll still talk to you with a bubbly personality and good energy, but I'm not gonna sit there and hide the fact that I have anxiety or that I'm struggling with something or whatever it is. I'll just talk about it normally. And I wish that was something that we as a society did more often and we're just more open and vulnerable about, like as if it was normal conversation, because it is comforting to know that other people are going through the same thing as you. And it doesn't need to always be talked about in such a negative, you know, Debbie Downer type of way. For example, when I went to the Amazon Diwali dinner recently, I had an anxiety attack before I came. I almost didn't even go to that event. And I remember when I got to the event, I told the girls there that that's what happened. And the way I said it wasn't in a way that really dampened the mood. I was just like, you know, I had an anxiety attack this morning and I didn't feel good about getting dressed and coming. I was so anxious coming here, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, I'm happy I came. Like, it's nice to see you guys and this whole event space is beautiful and blah, blah, blah. And it allowed me to hold space for both my feelings, which was being grateful to be there and having a good time, but also recognizing that I was, you know, going through something in the moment. And the way the girls embraced me with such a warm welcome and, you know, helped me ease my anxiety. And, you know, one of the girls brought me water because she knew I was like having hot flashes and wasn't feeling well. The other girls were just like complimenting me on how beautiful I looked and how they're just happy to see me and all this stuff. And I think being able to be openly vulnerable in a healthy way has really helped me step into the person that I want to become. And I think it's also the beginning of me being able to show up online as my authentic self, because that is something I really struggled with as soon as the camera came on. Really struggled to show my personality, because in my mind, when I show up online, I have to be so careful about what I say and who I am and what I'm putting out there. And to an extent I do, but in a way it's also hindering me from being able to show up as my true self. So yeah, I do think this is the beginning of me kind of rediscovering my career and where I want to take it and how I want to show up online. And the money part I'm still trying to figure out because I have no idea what I'm gonna do about that. But for now, I am happy and terrified and sad and scared and confused all at the same time, because I know this is leading me down a path that I want to go down, but at the same time I have no idea what's happening. Anyways, I know this get ready with me probably sounded like one large word vomit, and I am so sorry about that, but I really appreciate you guys. Thank you guys so much for giving me this platform and creating a safe space for me to be as vulnerable as I am online. I don't expect this video to be well received or for a lot of people to watch it, but I think it was something that I just kind of needed to do for myself. And again, I appreciate those of you who sat here and listened to me. I wonder if any of you can relate to any of this. I really don't know. Now you guys know the drill. All the products I used in this Get Ready With Me will be linked on my LTK. The link will be in the description below. If I can't link the exact products that I use, then I'll share some substitutes on there as well. Before I end off this video, I would love to know your thoughts on my word vomit get ready with me and just kind of sharing with you guys what's happening in my life and what's been on my mind lately. Do you guys actually enjoy or do you want to see less of it? Was any of this relatable? And if there's any topics or questions or advice you want to ask me for my next get ready with me, let me know in the comments below or send me a DM on Instagram, which is also linked in the description. If you did like this video, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel and share it with a friend that might want to see it. As always, thank you so much for all the love and support you guys show me, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.